Hey, what's going on, guys? Realm Gaming here. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention some of my socials in the description of the video. If you want to support the channel, please check those out. If you want to support the channel in other ways, please consider just dropping a like or a nice comment somewhere on the video. It really helps the algorithm push our content out there to a broader audience. With that being said, hope you guys enjoy the episode. Hey, what's going on, guys? Realm Gaming here, back in another video. Today's episode, we're going to do a quick review of the Discipline Priest in War Within PrePatch. This is going to be catered more towards a beginner's guide. I will do a complete full guide when War Within comes out of Discipline Priest, but for now, this is going to be more geared towards changes and just kind of a high-level overview of our basic rotation. So the whole idea of this series that I've been releasing is to help people pick a healer going into War Within, so you're not wasting a whole bunch of time after the first month or two, spending a whole bunch of time on a character, then realizing, hey, I don't like to play this healer. So again, more of an overview for now. We will dive into the nitty gritty when War Within releases. So for now, let's just go ahead and start with the changes. So Discipline Priest actually has some of the least changes out of all the healers going into War Within. I think Blizzard is pretty happy with the way that Discipline Priest plays, so they didn't change too much. So the talents have changed a bit, but this is, as of right now, as of today, the most agreed upon Mythic Plus talents that we'll be running. I will put a link in the description of the video below. This could change tomorrow. There could be a couple small things in here that aren't accurate, but I think overall, generally, this is what we are going to be running going into War Within. So Sanguine Teachings, I do believe, was changed a bit and now increases our leech by 4%. This was 3% prior. We did get a new talent over here in the Priest tree called Cauterizing Shadows. When your Shadow Ward Pain or Purge the Wicked expires or is refreshed within 5 seconds remaining, a nearby ally within 40 yards is healed for 25,000. So basically, this is going to incentivize us to get the most value out of our Shadow Ward Pain or Purge the Wicked and let it tick for the majority of its duration before you refresh it. We also have a talent down here in the bottom right called Phantom Reach. So Mind Games was actually removed and it is now a PvP talent, and it was replaced with this Phantom Reach here. It increases the range of most spells by 15%. So not sure really what they were going with on this one. Maybe this is more of a raid talent, but from a Mythic Plus standpoint, I don't think it's all that powerful. And then we also have Manipulation here, which was, I believe, redesigned. So now causes you to take 1% less damage from enemies affected by a Shadow Ward Pain or Purge the Wicked. This is a 2-talent node, so that 1% will go to 2% with 2 points invested. We also have some changes over here to Power Word Life. The healing on this was increased by 15%. We also have a slight nerf up here to our Void Tendrils. So the duration of the tendrils was reduced to 15 seconds. This was 20 seconds prior. Then there's also some various tweaking over here to our Luminous Barrier and our Power Word Shield. They just kind of adjusted the absorb values a bit. We also have some changes to our Rapture over here. So your next 3 Power Word Shields have no cooldown and absorb 80% additional damage. This was 40% additional damage prior, so we did get a buff to our Rapture. And then also, I did forget on the Luminous Barrier up here, the buff to the absorb amount was actually 400%. So it was a very significant buff. However, the absorb amount is now decreased beyond 5 targets. So in terms of changes, really, that's it. Not a lot going on here. Not as many changes as we saw with Monk. Not as many changes as we saw with Restoration Shaman. All right, now, the rest of this video is going to be kind of how do you play Discipline Priest. And if you are pro at Discipline Priest, you've been playing it for a long time, you can go ahead and click off the video. The rest of this video is going to be more geared towards newer players and people trying to decide on which healer spec to play. So for those of you who aren't very familiar with Discipline Priest and kind of how we work, we heal through our damage. So it's a very engaging play style. Now the downside of that is you do have some things to keep track of, for number 1, and number 2 is if you stop doing damage, you stop healing. So if your character, for example, does get stunned or something happens, you don't have a ton of HOTS really going out, just passively healing people. You have to be doing direct damage to do direct healing. Now the way we heal is through something called Atonement. So Atonement here, your spell damage heals all targets affected by Atonement for 35% of the damage done. This is increased to 70% when not in a raid, so in Mythic Plus, this is actually 70%. Now the good thing about Atonement is when it's up, you're very strong. You can heal through just about anything when this Atonement buff is up. The downside of this is when it's not up, you and your group are extremely vulnerable to damage. So timing this incorrectly could mean a wipe for your group. So Atonement is actually a spell that is applied individually. It's not something that's necessarily applied to everybody at once. You can apply it to everybody at once, but a lot of the times you're going to have to apply this through other things like a flash heal or a power word shield. Thankfully, the majority of the time though, you're not going to have to do that. A majority of the time, your Atonement is going to be applied through something called Power Word Radiance here. And I don't know why I closed the spellbook. Power Word Radiance, a burst of light heals the target and 4 injured allies within 30 yards for X amount, and it applies Atonement for 60% of its normal duration. So you get 2 charges of this, and there's a 1.5 second cast time. So very simply put, you cast Power Word Radiance, you now have Atonement up here in the top right, it's ticking down. Now you do damage, now people get healed through your damage while this buff is up. Now, if that buff falls off, your damage will no longer heal your allies. Okay, I went ahead and changed our location because we're going to have to actually do some damage to some dummies to be able to kind of see how our rotation works, right? We heal through doing damage, so we need a dummy to hit. Okay, so now that we did talk about Powered Radiance, Atonement, kind of what it is, now let's kind of go a little bit deeper into some more core spells. Probably your main single target heal will be Flash Heal. It's not your strongest single target heal. Your strongest single target heal is going to be Penance, but Flash Heal specifically, you just cast it. It does a heal, very simple, very straightforward, very iconic pre-spell. Another iconic pre-spell is going to be Penance here, unique to Discipline. This has a 9-second cooldown, has a 1.5 second cast time, and this can target an ally for healing or target an enemy to do damage. So the question becomes, do I target an ally or do I target an enemy? Well, it completely depends. If you need big single target healing, it's okay to target an ally with this, but I think most of the time you're going to be targeting an enemy to do damage with Penance to heal through your Atonement. So this is going to be not only one of your main damage spells, it's also going to be one of your main heal spells. Now we also have something called Mindbender. This is on a 1 minute cooldown, and you summon basically a pet for 12 seconds, and this will generate mana each time the pet attacks. And Mindbender is actually a very big part of your rotation. It looks like it's on a 1 minute cooldown, but there's actually ways to reduce that cooldown. Okay, so a lot of things happen when you cast your Mindbender. The first thing is Shadow Covenant. So this is going to put you into sort of like a shadowy pact, and it's going to transform some of your spells. So basically, while your Mindbender is active, a lot of your spells are going to get buffed. So a lot of your healing can actually come through Mindbender, even though it looks like a damaged spell. So just read it out here. Casting Mindbender enters you into a shadowy pact, transforming Halo, Divine Star, and Penance into shadow spells, increasing the damage and healing of your shadow spells by 20% while active. So when you cast this spell, you are immediately just stronger across the board. Now this effect gets increased by an additional 10% through our Twilight Corruption. And then down here we have Void Summoner. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. You can actually reduce the cooldown of your Mindbender through casting your damaging spells. So the whole idea of Disc Priest, at least right now, is to get as much uptime on your Mindbender as possible. While Mindbender is out, we get mana regen, we get increased damage, and we get increased healing. So what you want to be doing is you want to be casting your damaging spells to get as much CDR on Mindbender as possible. So this is one of the reasons that we cast Smite so much in our rotation, is not necessarily for the damage or healing that Smite does, but more of to get CDR on Mindbender. Now, another reason we run Mindbender and why it's so strong right now is due to Inescapable Torment. So this is basically going to turn your Penance, Mind Blast, and Shadow Word Death into an AoE cleave that goes through your Mindbender. Just read it out here. Penance, Mind Blast, Shadow Word Death cause your Mindbender or Shadow Fiend to teleport behind your target, slashing up to 5 enemies, dealing X amount of damage, and extending its duration by 0.7 seconds. So not only is that a lot of damage, that's also a lot of healing. Again, our damage is converted into healing. So a very core part of playing Discipline Priest is not so much in casting Smites or Penance or Power Word Shields or even Power Word Radiance, even though it is. I would say 50% of Discipline Priest is focusing around this Mindbender here. While Mindbender is up, your life is easy. So we want to get good uptime on Mindbender. Now, another spell I'm going to talk about here is Purge the Wicked, and this will replace our Shadow Word Pain. this will end up being your main dot that you place on the target. It is an instant cast. It's very easy to apply. So Purge the Wicked is nice, right? Because again, more damage, more healing. So when we can spread out Purge the Wicked, we can get a lot of passive healing through this spell. So you can see at the bottom here, this will spread to 2 nearby enemies when you cast Penance on the target. And this will actually increase to a 3rd target when we take Revel in Purity here. So Purge the Wicked will deal an additional 5% damage and spread to 1 additional target when casting Penance. So let's take a look at what this looks like, right? We will cast Purge the Wicked on this target. We'll cast Penance here, and it should go to 4 targets. So it went to 1, 2, 3, and if you notice over here, it didn't go to this 4th target. So why not? So what it did is it actually refreshed, or it lengthened the cooldown on our primary target. So this actually now has a longer duration than these other 2 beside it. So it actually still is hitting 3 additional targets. It's just reapplying the buff to your initial target. And that is a good thing, right? Because it will actually increase the duration of the existing dot. So typically what you're going to do in your rotation is you're going to want to apply Purge the Wicked. You want to spread it with your Penance. We'll drop our Mindbender. We can then drop our Power Word Radiance for Atonement. And then we can go into Mind Blast and then into Smite Spams. Right, and we are keeping track of our Atonement as it does fall off. We can apply it again. Keep Purge the Wicked up. Atonement's low. Let's reapply. Penance. Mindbender's off cooldown again. Into more Smites. We also have Mind Blast off cooldown. We got a proc here for an instant cast Flash of Light. We can use that, and so on and so forth. So that looked really confusing, but it's actually not that bad, I promise. Really, the worst part of Discipline Priest is just trusting your damage to do enough healing. And the way that you could trust that is by getting high uptime on your Mindbender. So really what you're trying to do holistically is apply Atonement through Power Word Radiance. Keep that up. You're wanting to Purge the Wicked, right? You want to keep that buff up, or you want to keep that dot up on all your targets. Cast Mindbender, then just send the rest of your damage basically. So using Penance off cooldown, using Mind Blast off cooldown. Then when all that's on cooldown, then you can kind of go into Smite Spams and you can kind of spot heal with your Flash Heal. And one thing that I did miss, just because I was talking so much, we do also have Shadow Word Death. It's on a 10-second cooldown. You do want to be using that into your normal rotation as well. Okay, now let's briefly talk about cooldowns. So of course, we do have Power Infusion. And if you are not very familiar with the current iteration of Power Infusion, we do have a talent here called Twin of the Sun Priestess, and this is also going to give you Power Infusion as well. So you can PI an ally and then you get it as well. So you never want to be using Power Infusion on yourself. Always use it on somebody else because you're going to get it as well if you do it that way. So I would have some sort of weak aura or something to track this that's kind of in the middle of your screen. You want absolute as much uptime on PI as you possibly can. And you're going to be sending that on your top damage dealer 99% of the time. All right, we also have Halo here. This is going to create a ring around us. It's just basically going to do a burst of AoE healing. So just to show you guys what that looks like, you press it, does a cast, it does some burst AoE healing. Not insanely strong. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not like insanely strong. Your strongest cooldown is actually going to be Rapture. And Rapture here, let me type it out. Oh, here it is. So Rapture, immediately Power Word Shield your target. And your next 3 Power Word Shields have no cooldown and absorb an additional 80% damage. So this did get buffed, as we talked about earlier in our changes section. This was buffed from 40 to 80%. So the way to use this is typically you're using this in a pinch, and it's sort of one of our emergency buttons, and we just throw out a bunch of beefed up Power Word Shields, your next 3. So again, I have a macro here, and this is on cooldown right now just because I was testing it out. But what this will allow us to do is this will allow us to cast Rapture, and then this will allow us to go into a Power Word Shield spam. So this will actually allow us to cast 5 Power Word Shields, and the reason for that is Rapture will cast 1, then we get 3 more buffed Power Word Shields, and then we get our normal Power Word Shield. So we get 5 total Power Word Shields out of this macro. Now after that 5th Power Word Shield, this will actually incur its cooldown, so you can't just spam this forever, but you know, this is really nice to have in a pinch to be able to kind of spread out through your group. Typically 5 party members, right? So you get 5 power word shields. So again, the first one will be cast on ourselves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we have incurred that cooldown. And again, it's a mouse over, so you can just kind of span this over your unit frames. All right, next cooldown I'm going to talk about is pain suppression. It's on a 3-minute recharge. You get 2 charges of this, and this will reduce all damage taken by a friendly target by 40%. Typically really good if somebody gets a nasty dot put on them. You can mitigate a lot of that damage with a pain suppression charge. And then the last cooldown I'm going to talk about here is power word barrier. It's on a 3-minute cooldown. You will place this on the ground and your allies can go into it, which will reduce all damage taken by 20%. So to share what that looks like, put it on the ground here, you run in it, less damage taken. Okay, actually lied. There is one more spell I do want to talk about, Desperate Prayer, 1.5-minute cooldown. It's basically a built-in health pot for priests. So it increases our max health by 25% for 10 seconds, and it will heal us for that amount. Okay, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.